Mama, part of your Mother's Day gift is this sermon. It is dedicated to you, and I hope applies to us all. So I ask for a tad of personal indulgence this morning on this Mother's Day. I learned how to love from my mother, and she learned it from God. Just think about it. God created a human being, and the purpose of that human being was to reflect back love, because angels can't do that. The angels couldn't choose to love God. They were created to praise God. So God created a human being so that it could choose to reflect love back. But God recognized that creating one human being to reflect back love wasn't enough. It didn't work because that human being needed another human being to practice with. The love they would find between themselves would reflect back to God whether they knew it or not, because that's what love does. It reflects pure goodness, and that's God. But God could have just continued creating human beings. God could have peopled the earth just by pop, there's another one, pop, there's another one, the DJ Khaled style for my millennial friends. But that's not what God did. God said, I'm gonna always give them someone to practice love with. So God invented mother. And other human beings would only come through her. That's the only way human beings are gonna come into this earth, God thought, through another human being, so that they will always have someone to practice with. That's how I'll do it, God said. So God invented a mother. I want to take this moment to ask again for your indulgence. Please forgive the extensive gender-specific language and gender-specific roles today, but it is Mother's Day, and my mother is here. But it's truly a tribute to all caregivers. My mother understood the assignment. She treated each and every one of her 3 children as someone to practice the love of God with. She loves us fearlessly and ferociously, without apology and without condition. My mother taught me how to love. And you learned it from God. My mother used to pray as a little girl for God to intervene into her life, for God to fill her life with God's presence. She went through some tough times as a little girl, and she begged God to intervene, and she couldn't have possibly known that that prayer would spill over into the next generation, into the lives of all 3 of her children. That God would honor her request so deeply that when we came along, the promise was still in full effect. My mother was a cashier at Kentucky Fried Chicken for 15 years? 9 years. Much less than I thought. 9 years. This woman stood on her feet behind that little counter and slung some fried chicken. And they had to put a tip jar on the counter because people were so moved by her presence and her energy, they wanted to give her money. So they went in hoping to spend $5 for some chicken, but walked out having spent $20 after tipping Miss Fanning. She got up every day and went to work, and I don't know how she did it. 3 needy children who would later get into football, not me and my brother, and debate club, that's me, and field trips, and we'd come home to get the permission slip signed and to get the fee for the trip, and I don't know how she did it on a salary from Kentucky Fried Chicken. But we wanted for nothing. Her feet were bone tired. I learned how to love from my mama. I was so moved by her commitment at work, and somehow as a child, I knew that her feet hurt. And her love inspired me to do something about it. She would come home. Now, we both love the soap operas, and still do. We still watch them together. We are a CBS soap family, by the way. So that's Young and the Restless. Come on, somebody. Bold and the Beautiful. And back in the day, they had As the World Turns and Guiding Light, you know. And then Oprah. And every day we would record the soap operas. It was my job to set the VCR. Aaron and Clara, VCR it's a device that you can put like a VHS tape in. So a VHS tape is, you could record a video to put in the VCR, and a video is, it was my job to set record on the VCR. I'd put in that VHS tape, set the timer. She would come home, get into her bed, and for years, night after night, as a kid, I would climb into her bed with her, and we would start the soap operas, and I had some lotion and some rubbing alcohol, and I would massage my mother's feet, night after night. I learned how to love from my mother, and she learned it from God. I was a pretty good kid. I didn't cause any problems. As a kid, I was AB honor roll, class president, lead actor in the 8th grade play, commencement speaker at graduation, a safety patrol. There were very few storms in my life as a child because this woman stood guard. When it was raining, I didn't know it because she was my shelter. When it was cold, I didn't know it because she was my blanket. And when I was hot, I didn't know it because she was my breeze. I caused no problems as a child. I was a very serious kid, however. I wore suits to school. I carried a briefcase. I know this shocks nobody here. But I took myself very seriously as a child. But when I became an adult, there were some storms that my mother couldn't protect me from. And in my 20s, right after undergrad, I suffered a mental health crisis. And I was hospitalized at Mount Sinai Hospital. And I didn't know what was going on. The doctors were trying to explain what they thought was happening, but I couldn't believe them. I couldn't hear them. But they put my mom on the phone. And it was easy to imagine her love when I was standing on the stage giving speeches. It was easy to imagine her love when I was at the top of my game, but here I was at my lowest. And when they put my mama on the phone in the hospital, I heard that Southern, strong, warm voice. "You all right, baby?" I said, "No, Mama, I'm not all right." She said, "But you gonna be all right, baby, because God is in there with you." I learned how to love from my mother, and she learned it from God. I know and recognize that my story is not everybody's story, and that while I do believe that the love between a mother and a child, a father and a child, a caregiver and a child is the closest we get to divine love. But it's not the only way we get there. You know what I think? I think when God invented mother, God looked down on earth and saw mamas like mine and became envious. God knew the love a creator could have for creation, but God self saw the magic between a mother and a child and said, I want in. So God became a mother. God had a baby and named that child Jesus. And God loved her baby boy. He was a straight A kid, a smart aleck, caring and kind, and he had a temper, especially when it came to injustice. God was so proud of Jesus. God was so well pleased. And then God had a brilliant idea: adoption. Since all the mothers of the earth aren't loving quite like Miss Fanny loves, God says, I can adopt them all and have the magic of a personal, intimate relationship as if they all came from my womb like Jesus did. I was always God, but Jesus made me a parent, a mother, and now I have some practice. I have learned, God says, how to love my creation as a helicopter mom. And I will love them passionately, ferociously, without condition. So today, friends, if you're not feeling immersed in passionate, ferocious love, if today you're missing your mother, if today you're mourning that you never really had a mother, or you're mourning that she has already crossed over, I have some adoption paperwork for you. It's 66 books long and includes a love story about you that you wouldn't believe. And I have a very strong recommendation to make about this Mother God who wants to adopt you. Mother God is waiting to swaddle you with unconditional love, and I have a pretty good feeling about this Mother God, because I learned how to love from my mama, and she learned it from God.